At the recent UFC 291 event, Justin Gaethje knocked out Dustin Poirier and took the BMF belt. As he says himself, no injuries were sustained. The weight cut was easy, and he's ready to ensure the Oliveira-Makhachev fight. Of course, if he gets paid well. And yes, Gaethje has been ensuring a title holder before, so this isn't new for him. And let's be honest, we've already seen Makhachev Oliveira, but Makhachev versus Gaethje is already interesting. But I think you realize that Oliveira doesn't have much of a chance of winning a rematch against Makhachev. Hello fighters! With you the World of MMA channel. In today's video I will give a prediction for a potential fight between Islam Makhachev and Justin Gaethje. But before you start, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and give me a like. Let's go. First, let's briefly recap the history of the fighters. Let's start with the champion. The 31-year-old Dagestani is at his peak. Now Makhachev has a streak of 12 wins in a row in the world's premier promotion and the third place in the ratings regardless of the category. Islam's career began in 2010 and he followed his older brother's path, Pro FC M1. But in contrast to Nurmagomedov, Makhachev had 11 victories, enough to be invited to the UFC. Khabib had 5 more. With an 11-0 record in May 2015, Islam made a bright debut. He choked Leo Kuhns in the middle of the second round and, as an undefeated fighter, received his next opponent. It was Brazilian Adriano Martins with a 28-7 record and a controversial win over Rustam Khabilov in his previous fight. Makhachev started confidently, pushing Martins and working at number 1. However, not even 2 minutes later, Adriano failed his opponent in one of his attacks, and with a clean right side punch inflicted his first defeat on Islam, also by knockout. Surprisingly, the Brazilian has not won again since then and has long since left the elite promotion. The Dagestanian took a break for a year, but there was also a story about meldonium, which annoyed the whole Russian sport. The return in September 2016 marked the beginning of the 12-fight winning streak that Makhachev now has under his belt. Among the defeated fighters, Nick Lentz, Gleison Tibau, Davy Ramos and Arman Tsarukyan. But Islam lacked flashy finishes. And in 2021 he began to show them. In March, he strangled Drew Dober. In the summer he led the tournament for the first time, also finishing Thiago Moises. And at the end of October, getting the most status opponent at the time, Dan Hooker. Makhachev simply decimated the New Zealander. At the end of February last year, Islam and Beneil Dariush had to decide who would be the next title challenger, but the Assyrian got injured, and instead he was challenged by a tough Bobby Green. It took the Russian fighter just under 3.5 minutes to secure another finish, his 4th in a row. Dana White couldn't ignore Islam any longer, and Makhachev got his long-awaited title shot. On the eve of UFC 280, Dagestani's haters and ardent Oliveira fans believed in Charles's chances, but the Russian fighter cleanly demolished the Brazilian and mockingly strangled the promotion's record holder by submissions. Islam then faced number 1 pound for pound Alexander Volkanovski and won by unanimous decision of the judges. Justin Gaethje is a unique fighter with the nickname Highlight. 12 fights in the world's premier promotion and 12 bonuses at once. Before meeting Khabib Nurmagomedov, each appearance in the octagon guaranteed Justin $50,000, and twice he received double bonuses, both for the fight of the evening and for the performance. Even in fights that he lost to Alvarez and Poirier he received bonuses, and those fights were nominated for Fight of the Year. Signed by the UFC with a record of 17-0 and as a serious rising star, he received immediately as an opponent the number 5 lightweight Michael Johnson. Moreover, Justin's debut was the highlight of the tournament. Looking ahead, only 3 times out of his 11 fights in Dana White's promotion, Highlight didn't top the tournament. A bright win was followed by those 2 losses, to Eddie Alvarez and Dustin Poirier, but both fighters went to the hospital after their fights. The 2 losses changed Gaethje's approach. He went from being a spectacle-obsessed fighter to a more calculated fighter. And a lot of credit goes to Highlight head coach Trevor Whitman. In the next 3 fights, he was 1 round away from knocking out his opponents. James Vick, Edson Barboza and Donald Cerrone were unable to counter anything against the updated version of ɡeɪdʒi. Justin has long been well known to mixed martial arts fans, but his worldwide fame came to him in May 2020 because of the coronavirus pandemic. The Khabib-Ferguson fight was once again derailed, and it was Highlight who came out to replace Nurmagomedov. If the first 2 rounds came out as competitors, then things changed in the octagon. Justin was just destroying Tony, who had a streak of 12 wins under his belt, and in the 5th round he achieved a triumph. And not just any fight, it looked like he broke Ferguson's will. The way El Chuchuy had never been seen before, running away, escaping ɡeɪdʒi's punches, and Herb Dean was forced to stop the beating. After winning the interim lightweight title, Highlight immediately dropped his belt. "I'll wait for the real thing," was Justin's explanation for his action. He waited. That fall in Abu Dhabi that year, Highlight faced the champion, but Khabib ran him over, choking him out early in the 2nd round. ɡeɪdʒi took a break for a year and returned in a fight against Michael Chandler. There's no point in describing what happened in New York, because it was the best fight of 2021, and Highlight won for the first time in the UFC by decision. Then in the title fight he lost by choke to Charles Oliveira, but got back on the winning track with a win over prospect Rafael Fiziev, and win by knockout in a rematch fight with Dustin Poirier. The experience is in full swing. Makhachev is the champion, but Justin has been held in the top 5 for a long time. And now, and in general, a top 2 in lightweight. The big question is cardio. Justin can go all 5 rounds if he works in the stand-up, and doesn't go crazy like he did with Tony. But he hasn't gone 5 whole rounds yet. And here, obviously, Makhachev will wrestle him. And that's a whole different job, which is exactly what he's not used to in the UFC octagon. I think if Islam doesn't take a lot of damage and goes into the wrestling more often, then obviously he's going to outbreathe Justin. Some will remember his fight with Volkanovski and the tired Makhachev there. But there was a big difference there, friends. Makhachev didn't come out there fully recovered. After the weight cut, he had only 28 hours to recover, when in Abu Dhabi he has 39 hours. Imagine what a difference that makes. In these conditions, who doesn't race, they are best off. And then Volkanovski hardly raced anything, so he was many times fresher. If the fight will be in Abu Dhabi, Makhachev will recover properly for the fight, and he will be very powerful and tough. But in anthropometrics we have everything plus or minus the same. ɡeɪdʒi is 2 or 1 centimeter taller, there is almost no difference in arm span. And then there's age. Justin is 3 years older, he is 34, Makhachev is 31. The wrestling is ruining the intrigue here. You could say Oliveira strong-led ɡeɪdʒi and Makhachev strong-led Oliveira. But that would be too easy. Makhachev differs from many in that he has all freestyle wrestling adapted to MMA, plus he's also a basic Sambo fighter. Although in his case it doesn't matter much. He can transfer from any position, there are a lot of options. Single leg, throws, etc. Plus he's a top-class grappler. If Khabib more often liked to finish, Makhachev is always looking for a submission. And if he closes a sub, the opponent is more likely to give up. This time he's facing All-American, basic freestyle fighter. Justin ɡeɪdʒi can wrestle and always has. But at some point he just stopped wrestling. He liked picking up power-ups, chopping, knocking out, putting on fights where the knockouts of the year and his nickname Highlight came from for a reason. Wrestling has become forgettable and grappling is completely absent. But there is a silver lining. As Kamaru Usman recounted, Justin after losing to Oliveira, getting his 2nd consecutive sub in a title fight, he got angry and started wrestling. Whereas before, he was conditioned to wrestle twice a week, now it's as many as 5. He realized that after Oliveira, Chandler could take advantage of that. And by the way, Michael tried, but ɡeɪdʒi blocked it well. And in the fight with Fiziev, he fought himself and had a takedown. What's the conclusion? ɡeɪdʒi has started training wrestling and isn't going to get choked out anymore. How much will these skills be enough to counter Makhachev? That's the big question for now, but I'll keep the intrigue alive and won't pick a favorite here for now. But the striking technique is already much more interesting. Once again, I want to compare Makhachev with Khabib. It's better to understand. If Khabib had almost no striking, but some kind of jab, which worked only because everyone was afraid of takedowns and was ready to miss hundreds of punches to the face, just to avoid being on the ground. And if in the parterre of Makhachev and Khabib we can sort out, the one is strong in this, the one is stronger in this. The difference in striking is simply cosmos. Makhachev can really fight exclusively in the stand-up. He both works second and can step in well. He's an awkward lefty with excellent blocking defense. I remember him having the least misses in the division. Plus he has a heavy hitter. He shook Wolf, dropped Oliveira, 2 fighters on the pound-for-pound list, and that's no joke. Well, most importantly, Makhachev believed in himself. Before, after a knockout loss and pressure from the team, he was stiff and afraid of every exchange. There was always a high block. A single punch and at most a double or a kick out of range. Now he's going forward in a series. It's a radically different job. That's good and that's bad. Bad because he can miss too much and fall down. And good because he's punching through more damage and becoming spectacular and competitive in the striking department. Justin Gaethje is a different caliber of beast in the stand-up. If before he was just a scary fighter, now he is a thinking, technical guy who not only knocks you out, but tries to deceive you to get out of unnecessary attacks. For example, he used to take all the punches to the forehead and lean into a blind block. Now he blocks punches by just pulling back, taking no damage at all. Oh, and as a matter of fact, after the loss to Poirier, Gaethje wasn't losing to anyone in the stand-up anymore. There was Barboza, Calba. Tony was on a 12-fight win streak, and it's widely believed that it was Gaethje who took his soul. Chandler's powerful in the stand-up too. You know all about Fiziev. And now Poirier. All of them easy wins for Gaethje. When Justin controls his emotions, he wins. Against Fiziev, he looked composed and confident. Justin's problems start when things don't go according to plan. He gets wrestled or pressed hard. It works really well against Gaethje. He starts panicking, charging in for a punch, making mistakes and failing hard. Of course, pressing him is also dangerous. You can fall like Oliveira and let's say you don't get up. Poirier also began to clamp him right away and there was no exchange in the center of the octagon at all. And remember what happened there and how it ended. In the prediction for the fight, obviously Makhachev's plan for victory is already written and clear. He will wrestle and try to finish the fight early by submission. But Justin, as we can see, is no fool. He will work on his mistakes. And if he couldn't drop the pressing Khabib, then the pressing Oliveira fell. And Makhachev, if he gets too reckless, could fall asleep. Islam needs to be very careful here, and it's better to try to get into the clinch and throw him with a clinch. That's where his game is going to start, and it's not going to go exactly according to Justin's plan. The quicker the transfer, the better chance Islam has to win here, so I think Islam Makhachev will win this fight early. What do you think, friends? Write your opinions in the comments. Bye, everybody.